Okay, hello everybody, and I am back with another video. So, today I felt like, let's try to have a middle ground, because this is a middle ground for questions about being trans. Because I notice while a lot of people want to complain about the way people ask about their gender identity, it's not entirely like out of rudeness. It's out of not knowing anything, really. Uh, so, just at least what I consider to be ignorance, which is the lack of knowledge, not the way the left likes to throw around ignorance. So, and I feel like this is kind of a thing that really needs to have both sides pulled in a little bit. So I figured, hey, me as a very this isn't exactly how this works kind of thing, Anyhow, I'll just get on with this. So, I pulled up some questions and I looked through these, and, I'm also gonna add kind of the twist that I've also heard of these questions. And so, gosh. So, yeah, I'm gonna basically read these off. There's 10 of these questions, and I'm just kind of gonna go over the way I've specifically heard people complain about it, and also specifically go about what people usually mean. Now, if they're saying something out of just, if it's in a condescending tone, and you can tell that it's obviously a condescending tone, none of this is going to help you at all. That's just people being assholes, and you're just gonna have to deal with it because people are assholes, and that's humans, and whatever. So, I guess the first question here is, do I refer to you as he, she, it, or they? So, I'm just okay, so honestly, I didn't know about pronouns. The word pronoun being used in this specific sense until, honestly, oh gosh, probably not even until, after I started, gosh, I probably actually started college by the time, I mean, I was trans before I knew what the heck a pronoun was, as far as in reference to this. So, here's kind of a description this page gives. Is pronouns are super important to the trans community. Use he when referring to trans men. Use she when referring to trans woman, unless they ask you otherwise. If that's too hard, then here's an easier way to adjust. Just call everyone by their preferred names. Okay, so I'm kind of gonna give some explanation of this. So I hear a lot of people being, complaining because people aren't asking what your pronouns are, or they ask it in a unprofessional way, and it's honestly just yeah, it's kind of I guess if you're in a professional setting, maybe you should ask professionally, but I mean, it's just, yeah. So, yeah, and of course, other people are also I don't want to refer to you as this, because you're not really this. And I get that to an extent. You know, it's not correct, but you know, I'm not the person to to be debating on this because I have horrible charisma, as anyone who has watched my videos knows. Uh, so, with the honestly, I wish the left had better educated people who don't just scream until people listen to them. But I feel like I'm spending too much time on this. Bear with me, people. But you know, people, honestly, if you don't really feel comfortable referring to them as he or she, and you don't want to be rude, I suggest the they pronoun, honestly. Like, I feel like that's a commonly respectful pronoun to use, and just kind of avoid gendering altogether. If, of course, you know, it's nice to ask. I actually really like this way of asking specifically, is just like, so do I call you he, she, it, or they? Because I just, I mean, it just doesn't feel so uptight to me, but I like it if people can tell my gender right offhand. Anyhow, I spent too much time on that one. I'm gonna go to the next one. Did you have the operation, or as a lot of people like to say, have you had the surgery? And let me tell you something, if someone actually says it in a condescending way, just ignore it. That's really all you can do, because nothing you do is gonna help. Crying about it's just kind of gonna make them happier, and trying to educate them is not gonna work. But of course, you know, a lot of people want to say, hey, that's, you know, did you have the surgery, like it's one big surgery? And I've seen so many trans people complain about people asking this, but it's like, but they don't know. They don't know. Like, you might be well educated on this, but that's because you're trans. You actually had to look this shit up. I wonder what they put here for the description of it. Having the op, also known as top-bottom surgery, don't make you transgender. Still not sure what's going on. Let me be more specific. Top surgery. Okay, yeah, so it just kind of goes into detail on that. I actually like this page a little more. It's a lot more educational about it. I've seen a lot of other pages when I was looking for things be a lot more bitchy about it. Honestly, that's just a nice way to put it. But yeah, so a lot of trans people want to complain about people saying the surgery like it's one big surgery, and you know, it's not, but I mean, you don't know this kind of thing unless you're going to potentially have it. Even with like normal surgeries that are like just anything medical, no one looks it up unless they are experiencing it. Like with me being blind, for example, is I've done an assload of research on the eye for someone who doesn't really have any interest in biology in general, and just, you know, so I know a lot more than the common person does about how the eye works and stuff like that, because that is a medical thing I go through. And and I'm not gonna get bitchy if, you know, someone doesn't understand that, you know, stuff about the different parts of the eye. In fact, I actually enjoy teaching people about the stuff I've learned, because it's so fascinating to me. And so to kind of pull in the right a little bit, I guess, I refer to it as left and right on the political scale, but that's because it's the general direction that it comes from. Some left people can be against transgender, some right people can be transgender, like me, for example, and plenty of other people I've actually seen on YouTube. So please don't think I'm making an assumption about you because you're left or right. I'm just kind of saying because generally, and makes it easier to just kind of say, so kind of pulling in the right, or people who are just generally not okay with trans, or who just don't know transgender things. You know, there's multiple surgeries, there's, you know, there's a lot of different things that go into it, and usually the only two that's really done as far as female to male goes is, well, then there's also hysterectomy too, so there's like 3 or so main ones. So bottom is, depending if you do hysterectomy separate from bottom, there's a lot that goes into. As you can see, I'm not going to go into more detail because I'm probably already rambling enough. So yeah, and you know, if you have a kid, or you have a really close friend who, you know, who is transgender, maybe look at some of the surgery things and make sure that they are well aware of it, because, you know, education is really the best tool to use, in all honesty. And so for left side, trans side, I don't know what words to use. I'm gonna be hated either way for this. It's fine. So basically, don't get pissy. Don't get pissy if someone is saying the surgery or the operation, because they most likely don't know. I've actually talked to people about, you know, being trans and stuff like that, with just, you know, and, you know, they had no idea what any of this stuff was, and, you know, they were asking questions, and I was happy to answer them, but I know good and well that if they had asked any other trans person, they would have probably been called transphobic or something, whenever, in all honesty, they just don't know. And I am hitting hard on all this stuff with this question here, because this is the question I have seen other trans YouTubers complain about so much. So, I mean, it's already everywhere. It really is. So, I mean, please, you know, if you don't know anything about trans things, do your research. If you are trans and someone asks you in such a way and it's not condescending, then educate them. Explain to them, well, it's not exactly one whole surgery, it's actually multiple surgeries, and, you know, make sure you guys are on the same page, or whatever. Anyhow, I think I've hit enough on this specific question. This one's actually the one that drove me to make this video, because I know that some people just don't know. They just don't know. And it's not right to get pissy because they don't know. Anyhow, I'm going to the next question before I keep rambling. So, the next question is, how do you have sex? Okay. I'm sorry, but, with that one, if someone asked me that, I would probably be very sarcastic, because that's just kind of, that's my asshole nature kicking in. Although, honestly, before I knew, God, honestly, okay, so, funny story, so the first trans person I actually met, they considered themselves asexual, or at least at the time. I don't know what they consider themselves nowadays, but, so, it's like, oh, okay. So I had no reason whatsoever to really ask this question. The second trans person I met, I just don't ask people about their sex lives. Gosh, okay. Anyone in the comments section, please give me sarcastic comments to say to someone if I ever get asked this, because I probably would be sarcastic about it, just because that is my way of doing crap, and I would do the same over something else. Like, this has nothing to do with political views. This is just me being an asshole. Let's see. I wonder what this description says. There are many ways to have sex. Sex is not just a key in a lock situation. I mean, that's its purpose, but I guess, you can also be closer to people. I mean, usually it works best as key in a lock, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can find other ways to have fun. Figure this out. Hopefully you figure this out. Oh gosh. If not, read some Dr. Jess blogs to learn more. Don't assume a trans woman. Okay. Yeah, I actually like this page. If you want to actually give a non-biased of questions to someone, I should have done more research on this ahead of time. So it's called the Astroglide, www.astroglide.com. Okay, you guys can probably see this. Just screenshot it or something. You guys can figure it out. You guys are more technology proficient than me. Anyhow, I spent a lot of time just reacting to that. I honestly should have thought these out a lot more before I got on here. But that's me for you. If I oh gosh. You just get the raw experience. I'm going in raw. Okay, this took a down. This took a down turn for the worst. Okay, so reeling it in. So if someone actually does ask you this, and they're asking out of honest curiosity, and they're not like, if they're trying to be nice about it, please don't use a sarcastic comment. But if they're just like, how do you have sex then, or something like that, feel free to be sarcastic. They probably deserve it. just be like, just like, I'm not your mommy and daddy, damn it. Have to talk with them. No, I've spent too much time with this. Anyhow, so to bring it to the middle ground of, like, if someone asks you in a way of, like, they're coming out of genuine confusion and just really wanting to understand, like, do you actually have sex normally? And you know what, just say, well, we have sex like any normal person. And of course, you know, with sex there's also dysphoria and all that fun stuff. So I don't know, your sex life might be different than mine. Everyone's sex lives are very different, and some people might even be uncomfortable having sex because of their dysphoria. So, and you can explain it that way. Be honest, just be real. I guess that's all I can really say for that, is just be real. And if you feel uncomfortable explaining that, then feel free to just be like, I don't really feel comfortable answering that. And if they keep bugging you, then, like, I don't know, just, then they're probably assholes and you probably shouldn't be around them. I don't know. Deal with it yourself, you know. I don't know how to deal with socialness. So, the next question is, when did you become transgender? Okay, now this one's even a pet peeve of mine. I'm gonna be honest. And I know other trans people probably can relate to this, but you do have to be patient. You really have to be patient. And that's a lot of it is, a lot of people nowadays don't have the patience, and we need to be more gentle. We need to be more patient, because this is a new thing. This isn't like raw facts to everybody. And you know what? There is science in it, but there's not an ass load of science in it. It's like, you know, it's in this really weird stage of, it's kind of proven, but it's not fully proven yet. It's like, and it's only just now becoming an okay thing to be. And, you know, in fact, you know, it's in that weird stage where it's like, you either have people who are like, oh gross, you can't be like that, or you got people who's like, oh, I'm so happy for you, welcome. And honestly, either way is so annoying. I just, oh gosh, that was actually part of why I didn't come out to a lot of people at first, was because I was like, okay, I really don't want the whole, oh, welcome, yay, you're trans. No, this this is turning into a rant, isn't it? No. So, the whole question of when did you become transgender? Now, for this question, it's a lot harder to explain in full detail if you don't have the time. Because, so basically, something to say with this is that, well, it's actually a neurological thing. I think what you might be asking is, when did I realize that I wasn't the gender that I am now identifying with? And, you know, try to get some clarification, because that's the thing here, is people just don't know, and they're just, and we should be willing to explain these things to them, you know? So, with the thing of becoming trans, you know, it's like, technically you were born trans, if your brain was that way. Also, hey, you know, some people are trans who aren't dysphoric. Now, that does kind of give... that does kind of give a, oh, this is not a legit thing kind of power to it. And people need to learn to, you know, separate those two. You know, really separating things on a knowledge level will help you a lot. So if you're coming from the dysphoric area, then where your brain is okay, you guys get it. You guys know. I'm not gonna even attempt explaining that, but you know, you can be like, hey, it's a psychological, neurological thing, and so technically I was born with it, but I realized that something was up, or, you know, I realized that, oh, I'm not really this gender. And you know what, I think this is a question, if someone asks you, if someone has questions for you, I honestly suggest saying, hey, you know, I want to have my full attention towards you, I want to be able to explain to you, can we set up a time to maybe meet up and we can, you know, go over these questions in more detail. Because if you're like me and can't make your point quickly, you could spend hours talking about this. So anyhow, now if you're a transgender person because of non-dysphoric reasons, and, you know, I'm okay with it, but please just make sure, you know, you explain that there's a difference. You know, be like, oh, and I guess this question could be a lot more, yeah, but, I don't know, I really only come from the dysphoric transgender perspective, so I don't feel like I do any justice explaining someone who's trans but not dysphoric trans, like, and like, you know, because I don't know what's really going through their minds. I'm guessing it's, gosh, I could go into detail on this, but I'm not, because I'm probably already taking too long on this video. So I'll just go to the next question. Oh, but wait. Before I go to the next question, to bring in the right or the non, you know, understanding of trans people, so yeah, that's a very informal way to get it. I suggest just, you know, if you're curious about a transgender person, sit down, have a conversation with them, and if they're not willing to talk to you and actually answer some questions because you don't understand, maybe they're not the best people to be around. I'm gonna be honest. So, yeah, pretty much, no, it's definitely not a, you just wake up one day and, oh, look at that, I'm trans. In fact, I wonder what this thing says specifically, because I like this one. This one does actually have a very non-biased way of explaining things. Like, seriously, this is the only thing I've seen that's a non-bias, relatively. So people don't just wake up and decide to become transgender. Thanks to science, we know that kids as early as 6 years old can identify as transgender. Trans people are born that way. Jeez. Yeah, that's kind of a lot more ruder one, but I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I feel like saying it like that. But no, people don't wake up as trans. They don't, it's not they just are suddenly trans one day. In fact, a lot of it is months or maybe years of thinking about this. Like, seriously, my realization stage probably took me, oh gosh, like at least a year. At least. Like, it really became obvious within a year. Like, when I look back on it, it's like, oh, yeah. Anyhow, so, yeah, I'm just gonna continue. So, the next question is, which bathroom do you use? Let's see what this thing says. If law permits, and it disturbs me that it... Oh gosh, yeah, that one's a little more complaining. Trans people use the bathroom of the gender that they identify with. The bathroom situation is so annoying for trans peeps. Think about it, why the boy want to use the girls' restroom. Okay, so, which bathroom do you use? And, that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Because here's the thing is, so, now someone like me who has become a lot more passing lately, I'm gonna go into the bathroom I identify with, honestly. Now here's my thoughts on bathrooms in general, is we just shouldn't even have male and female bathrooms. I think everyone's gonna be safer in a unisex restroom, to be perfectly honest. However, it's nice because, the guys' restroom, a lot less lines, all that stuff. But, like, early on into my transition, for me, I often actually went interchangeably between both. Just because of, I don't feel like I'm passing enough, or maybe, someone, or maybe one bathroom's too full, which, luckily for me, honestly, women's restrooms are usually the ones that are full, so, yeah, that's kind of the thing. And honestly, most trans people avoid using the restroom, and it's honestly more out of social stigma than law. I feel like trying to bring the law into this is just ignorance, because it's like, dude, I'm still terrified to use the restroom in a state that it's perfectly legal for me to use it, and it's because of social stigma. And gosh, I could go into detail on that. I could go into so much detail on that. But I won't, because I ramble on enough as it is. So, I guess to kind of bring it in for trans people who are trying to explain this, so basically, just be honest. Just be honest. And if someone's honestly doesn't know, explain to them. Be like, well, for each person it's different. Typically, people who, typically trans people use the bathroom according to their identity. And that is a very common thing. So, yeah. But just be real, like, and if you're like me, and, if you're having someone, so this kind of is thrown out more to the blind transgender people, is that you will definitely be asked, if someone knows that you're trans, or you look very androgynous, very, very likely you're going to be asked, which restroom do you want to go to? Because if you need help being led to the restroom, or whatever, then yeah, that's kind of an inevitable. There we go. That's how English works. So, yeah, that's I just kind of this honestly just came to my brain. Honestly, I was just thinking, yeah, that one's definitely an inevitable for someone who is blind and trans, especially early on in transition. Or if you don't wear a binder. Like, with me, I'd probably I could probably be seen as either way because of my voice, but also because of my chest. Gosh, I want these off so bad. Anyhow, so, and for the people on the right, like I just explained, most people do identify as whatever they identify as, go to that restroom. However, a lot of trans people want to avoid using the restroom. And if you happen to be guiding a blind transgender person, wow, I actually really don't know what to say for that. I don't know what to tell you, honestly. I really don't. So, I feel like quietly, politely, don't make it a big deal. Just, if you're aware that you're trans, or like, whatever, or, you don't know their gender at all, it's perfectly reasonable to say, hey, which bathroom do you go to? If, honestly, gosh, I would say, honestly, take them to the restroom that they identify as. I honestly would. Now, if they're not very well passing, if you can find a family restroom or a unisex restroom, I'm talking from my own experience here. I can't speak. I can't speak for all people of both minorities, so please take my words with a grain of salt. But I'm gonna try to give the best advice I can on this. So, for my own experience, it's been very uncomfortable to go into either gendered restroom when you're early on, and you could really pass as either way. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice to go to a unisex restroom. Now, I would say take them to the restroom that they identify as, just because and I think most blind trans people would agree with me, is that they can just be like, oh, if they get questioned in that restroom, there's always the excuse of, oh, you're blind, so you don't know that you're in the wrong restroom. Gosh, now I'm thinking about this more, I'm just like, I could make a whole video on bathrooms, and it's stupid. That's how much detail I can go on these things. You know what? If anyone wants me to make a video about that, feel free to be like, hey, make a video. Although no one really watches. Except for maybe a few people. Let's check out how my recording's doing. Okay, it's still running. I always worry about that. Anyhow, I hope I answered the bathroom question fairly. Oh gosh, I never feel like I'm making my point, which is why I'm so repetitive. Probably. So, if I'm not making my point clearly, or if I'm not, you know, just feel free to ask questions. Anyhow, and bear with me. Okay, next question. Are you sure you aren't just super gay? Totally. So, I honestly don't hear this one. I don't really hear this one a lot. However, I do find it kind of a... Oh, that makes sense. Actually, no. Okay, so this actually just made a lot more sense to me. Because it's like, I feel like I've heard this question, but I've never heard someone ask me this specifically. And I realized, oh wait, that was exactly how I saw being trans originally. Now, and here's where it's important to not be an asshole. Okay? Because people don't understand. People don't know. They're not aware of this. So please, educate them. Don't shove it onto them to already know, because that's just not cool. You know, they're not going to know. It's not a common knowledge thing. Anyhow, gosh, I I was wondering where I'd heard that question. Okay, so for me, coming specifically from this perspective, I can actually share a lot more on this. And that is, so, from before I ever met a transgender person, my honest original thoughts were, well, I guess maybe they're gay and they don't want to admit that they're gay, or maybe they, like, I don't know, want to have sex with a different body part or something like that. And of course, you know, eventually I figured out that's not the case. So, and this is honestly out of a lot of people, you know, they try to figure it out on their own. They've heard trans people, they've heard of trans people, but it seems so uncommon to them that they're like, well, what's the chance I'm going to run into someone like that? They're probably just really super gay people who have the money to be trans or whatever. And this, of course, is taking in a lot of stereotyping, which stereotyping is not always wrong, but it's not always completely right either. And that's an important thing to take away from stereotypes, is there are some things that are actually quite accurate, whereas other things not so accurate. So pretty much being trans is regardless of orientation. And honestly, I honestly feel like anyone who's looking up videos like this are probably already know that, you know, being trans isn't just being super gay. But if you But if you meet someone who just thinks, oh, you're probably just like super gay, like I said, I kind of came from that perspective of, mine was more of a, you're gay and you just don't want to admit it kind of a perspective. And I mean, if you have anything similar to that, or like this, or whatever, you know, oh goodness. It's important to not be an ass. Like, now if they're being condescending about it, and it's obvious they're condescending, as I've said a million times already, nothing you say or do is going to change it. Like, even getting butthurt about it's not going to change it. Being an asshole isn't going to change it, you know. So the best thing you can really do is to really educate them. Be like, well, actually, transgender and sexuality are actually two completely separate things. And if you have the time to sit down with and explain it to them, then that would probably be your best bet, is to have a, you know, explain it to them. Like, be like, you know, being transgender is, look up, you know, there's this thing, gender dysphoria. I feel like there's a lot to go into this, because honestly, most likely, if someone asks this of you, they probably don't know a lot about being trans. Or like very little to nothing about being trans. Or like maybe they've met one or two trans people. And of course, you know, then there's cross-dressers, and I mean, and flamboyant gay people. Like, dude, trust me, those people look like freaking trans people. You know, so that could also be a common association. And it's just important to explain that, hey, you know, that's not exactly correct. And have an honest discussion. And if you don't have time to discuss it, you know, just explain that, well, just to put it simple, just if you're quickly needing to get out of the way, just be like, well, gender identity and sexual orientation are actually two completely separate things that have nothing to do with each other. Which, kind of funny, huh? How LGBT, you know, kind of does make that pretty confusing for people. But I would say, gosh, this is definitely the more of the question you need to be able to actually talk with them a little bit longer on, I feel like. Now, if you can send them, like, internet links or something like that, or hell, maybe this conversation is happening over the internet. I don't know. And, you know, just send them some links. With all of these, honestly, send them links. Just, you know, and use non-biased scientific things. Don't use any leftist thing. Don't use something that's like social justice wants you to use. Don't use the very far left stuff, because honestly, that's probably where people start butting heads at. So, yeah, I mean, just educate them. You know, you want to say it's not your job to do it? Well, then, if it's not your job to educate, then you've got some crappy representation. Because no one can represent you like you. Anyhow, I hope I'm clear on this. I really do. Gosh, I don't ever feel like I'm clear on things. But like I said, I have come from this perspective, and honestly, this was honestly before I even met the first transgender person, and the only representation of trans I had was South Park. So, yeah. So let's... Okay, so the next question is, what's your real name? Oh, God. Okay, so... I understand the frustration. I've heard a lot of other people complain about this, and I specifically got pretty pissed off when my dad asked my girlfriend about this, because my girlfriend is also trans. And so, oh God, oh God, that whole situation, my dad was just being, he was kind of being an ass. Like, he was... Oh gosh, it was a lot rude. It was... But, so here's the thing is... So this is definitely where I feel like a lot of the people who are, you know, not so understanding of trans people probably end up coming off a lot more rude as, which is with this question of, like, what's your real name? And, oh God, and they use specifically real name, and that oh gosh, that bugs me too. But, like with all these questions, it does require patience, because all you're gonna get from being a rude ass to a rude ass, I mean, Jesus, don't hate me for making this reference, but it's like Trump and Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is. I think I got that right, I hope. It's like Kim Jong-un freaking talking back to each other. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, I don't care how you feel about Trump, he's got a self-righteous, attitude. Which can be good or bad. I'm not gonna get into politics. No, thank you. I choose life. Pretend like that didn't happen. I don't know editing tools, so nothing is being edited out. Anyhow, I got off track. Gosh. So, real name. A lot of times, people don't quite... It doesn't really come to their minds first off that, for one, you can legally change your name. And honestly, most trans people are very uncomfortable with saying their old name, and that is a lot of the reason people call it their dead name, is because to them that is dead. And for me personally, I'm a lot more open about my old name. However, it has legally changed, so my real name is in fact Zane. Thank you. Tried to be smug and I just freaking got snot going more. Why do I have to be sick, you guys? Oh gosh, I didn't bring into... Holy crap, it's light outside. I've been up all night. I'll just use this tissue that I've been using. I know, what a lovely sight. I'm too lazy to actually, like, stop the video. Too late now. Anyhow, no, I get so stuffed up that I get headaches if there's too much snot there. Oh gosh. Anyhow, I'm not gonna go into detail about me being sick and snot and you. But now you got the pleasantry of me blowing my nose on camera. Congratulations. Anyhow, like I said, just raw potato man. That's what I should just name my channel. It's just the raw potato. Because that's a more accurate thing for this channel. Although I am a science major, so the science aspect works, and I need to focus. I'm such a distractible person. Anyhow, as I was saying before I got distracted with snot, was with real names, is that, so for the people who are not so understanding of the whole transgender thing, is that you know, typically people try to get their name legally changed as soon as they can, once they have the money. It's kind of expensive, but it's not near as expensive. Honestly, it's probably about as expensive as hormones, as well. It's somewhere between the price of 1 to 2 doses of hormones, depending where you're from, will also vary. But yeah, so, like, for me, I could pull up my ID and, hey, you know, guess what? My name is legally Zane. So my real name is, in fact, Zane. So this also comes from me having a more, I guess, philosophical kind of mindset. And gosh, I could go into more detail on why I say that. Oh gosh. So many things I can talk about, and not enough organizedness. So the thing is there's a lot. There's not a lot in a name. There's a lot in a person. To me, a name means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Now, when choosing my name, you know, I kind of went through this thing of, well, I wanted to kind of have some meaning to it. Because you know, if you choose your name, if you are choosing your name, which I think is, like, a great thing to be able to do, is to just choose your name. Because then you get to reflect a little bit about yourself. And so, you know, I went through this whole debating of, you know, well, what name do I want? And Zane just kind of stuck a lot with me, honestly. And the name for it, at least the male meaning of it, is good. And, you know, it is a male and female name. So, hell, if something happened where I was like, oh, hey, I'm not actually trans, which is highly unlikely, you know, I would probably keep the name, in all honesty. So, when you choose your name, I feel like that shows a lot more about yourself than really anything else. However, just me with names in general, I don't remember names, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't find names important, because I don't care about your name. I care about you. I care about who you are, what you do, what you do. Like, I care more about the person and less about the label put on it. And so that is often a perspective I come from a lot of times, is labels. You know, labels help you to get organized. Nothing else. But so I personally do find it kind of silly to ask what's your real name, because it's like, I mean, for one, that's a name that they don't want, and that is a name that, you know, you know, and it's just a name. And like, for other people who maybe want to change their name because they don't like their name, so they change it or go by another nickname. Most people, you know, they're less curious about, oh, what's your actual name? Like, you know, for legal reasons it makes sense, but yeah. So, you know, it is a little bit rude to ask, you know, what is your real name, because it is aggravating. It really is. And for some people, they have it legally changed, and for other people, maybe they've even been going by a different name for so long that it's just odd to hear. It's strange and just odd, I guess. So yeah, so that's a lot more of my perspective on it specifically. And, you know, most trans people don't like to talk about it, and it makes perfect sense. You know, it's like, it's not really that important of a question, because who cares what you were? It just matters who you are. So yeah, now to bring it to pull the trans people in a little bit more on this, to kind of meet on some middle ground, is, don't get pissy. Yeah, you're probably gonna want to feel, you probably do feel pissy that someone asked you this, because like I said, when my dad specifically asked my girlfriend this, I was just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Not for real though. Like, I was just like, did you freaking just? So I think a lot of it is to, I think maybe the best way to retort that with is, what's the point in telling you a name that I never use? And I think having a conversation from there might be helpful. So I guess that's really all I can say for that, is, you know, and if you get to a point where you're just like, if you're like me, you can be like, Zane, that's what it is on my ID, so it's a nice thing about legally changing your name, is you see this question and you're like, oh, ta-da, pulls out ID, just like, ah. Actually, there's still a few things that have my old name on it that I actually need to get fixed. I've just been like, no, school, sick, laziness. Homework. Anyhow. And if you haven't changed your name yet, yeah, which honestly was something that pissed me off whenever my dad asked my girlfriend this, is just because it's like, no, don't do that. Just like, and you know, that's not a name that person wants to be called by. And so, yeah, you know, there's not a lot in the name, you know, your parents named you, and that's really all there is to it. Like I said, so, I don't know, I say try to maybe come at it from a more of a perspective of the what's the point in me telling you a name I don't use, and like, you know, and you know, if someone's not willing to recognize you by the name that you go by, just understand that, you know, there's you are more than that name. And if anyone tries to make you a name, don't go for it. Just be yourself. Anyhow, so the next question is, are you a drag queen? And this makes sense. This makes sense because it's like, and I don't really know how this comes into question, because it's like, just explain the difference. Just explain the difference to them, because I'm not really sure where this comes from, but explain to them that, well, there's a difference between wanting to look like a girl and wanting to have the biological female parts, and vice versa. Which, if it was the other way around, it'd be drag queen. Which most people would just be like, what are you, a lesbian? And, oh gosh, so, yeah. And if you're someone who's kind of like, well, are transgender people just drag queens? You know, keep in mind that, you know, do some research on transgender, and specifically look up dysphoria, because that's going to send you in a lot more information. The main difference is that, well, like for a male to female person who's a trans woman, they want a vagina, they want tits, they want to be biologically female, and, you know, they want to get as close to that as they can. So yeah, man, I feel like I could really go into more more detail on, like, what is it really like being trans, and like maybe answering some questions that a lot of, you know, the whole thing of like, oh hey, you know, you just want to dress as a girl, or you just want to, or like, you can't just change your body, you can't just change your gender and stuff like that. I feel like I could go in more detail like that. I might end up doing that at some point, but yeah, I guess it depends on what other people are interested in me doing. Most likely because I don't have a lot of viewers, I'll probably just do that. that anyways. Don't got much to lose. Anyhow, so I'll continue on with what I'm doing now. So the next question is, you must be a transvestite. Oh wow, so they went into the... So yeah, drag queen is like... Basically, here, let me explain this. Drag queen is you dress up as a female, but at the end of the day, you're still a guy. And honestly, there are drag queens who... Most drag queens, they live their everyday life looking like a guy. So, So, from what I understand, is that transvestites are kind of more of, in a sense, a full-time drag queen. I don't know this stuff, so please don't, be like, oh no, but, at the end of the day, they still identify as men or women or whatever. So, if you have more questions on that, I'll answer that. I just feel like I've already hit enough on that. Okay, so of course I think this one's the last question on here is, are you going to change your mind? So, if someone asks you, for one, if you're going to change your mind, or if they're concerned that you're going to change your mind, it's important to understand that most likely they are coming from a loving perspective, and they don't want to see you... Specifically, they don't want to see you transition all the way and then realize, oh, I'm not really this. And there are the people out there who do that. And, that's why you gotta be sure with yourself. And it's important to question yourself, am I really this way? Am I sure this is what I want? Is this what I need for myself? Or am I going to screw myself up? And almost in a way, I would say, go to the next level of thinking and say, well, if I did change my mind, would I still be okay with this? And understand that if you get bottom surgery, you've pretty much permanently taken away any chance of having children. And that is a very important thing to understand. And it is important for you to be sure that this is what you want. Because just imagine, it's expensive as shit to transition. Imagine how much money it would be to go back. And just all that, pretty much same price, about more or less. And you would have to deal with that. And that's a very real possibility. And I do think a lot of times this question comes out of concern. I think more often than not it does come out of concern. And it comes out of concern because, no one wants... Those people don't want to see you change your body to just be like, oh, I don't really want to be this way. What have I done to myself? Because that can be very regretful. and you have to, and a part of being trans that I honestly, personally, I, from what I've seen of other trans people, is they're not real enough with themselves. They're not super ultra real. They cut out reality from themselves with safe spaces and other stupid stuff like that. Oh god, gosh. So, yeah, I suggest, if someone asks you this, understand most likely it's coming from concern. Or, someone thinking, oh, it's just a phase or something like that. And because for some people it is. For some people it is. And, I definitely don't want to see anybody transition and then realize they did not think it through enough beforehand. Because, damn, it is a game changer. It really is. And so, if someone asks you that question of, like, are you sure you're not going to just change your mind or something? Or, like, oh, you're probably just going to change your mind. Understand that, it usually comes out of concern or someone thinking that they know you better than you know you. And you know what? In all honesty, with some people that's true. With some people that is so true. Because, some people can have a lot better insight about you than you might have of yourself. Just because you might be blinded by certain emotions or by certain things going on in your world, and another person looking in might have a better perspective. So, if it is coming from the concern aspect of, I'm just concerned about you, you need to understand that, you really need to reassure them that you're fully thinking this through. You gotta be real with yourself, and you need to be real with them. You need to make them feel safer about it by making sure you're secure in yourself. And I feel like this one's definitely a harder one to go off of, because it's like, that's what I get for staying up all night, jeez. But, yeah, if it comes from a place of concern, I wish I had better advice for this. I really do. I guess, as I originally made this video, is the trans person needs to be more secure in themselves to help reassure that person. But that person who is also concerned that you're going to change your mind or whatever, just understand that most likely they've done extensive research. And understand that they're not going to go through a bunch of hell to transition just to change their mind. And you're better off being supportive. And a thing you should also do is to do some research for yourself. Do extensive research. If you're really truly concerned for that person, do your research. Try to look at what do trans people actually do. and maybe even research it the way that a transgender person would. Like if you was specifically trying to look for the surgeries or whatever, you know, I think educating yourself will help you to comfort yourself, and having communication with whomever you're concerned for is important too. Both people need to be able to talk to each other and come to an understanding. One person can't do it on their own. You both have to put in a little bit. And for a lot of people, that does not happen. Now, if you're coming more from the looking at someone from the outside looking in, and you're kind of like, oh, they're just probably blinded by all this stuff. Honestly, trust me, if they start to transition, most likely they're not going to change their mind. I still feel like, even with that kind of a perspective of, do you really know what you're getting yourself into, could use communication with. And maybe, and honestly with this question also, and I think for everybody, talking to a therapist together is a good idea. Talking to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever. Talking to someone about this. Talking to a third party person about this, who knows this stuff and who can give a non-bias, might be good. Or maybe a slight bias towards the person in question of being trans, I hate to say that, but it's kind of like, if you want someone who understands the transgender stuff more. Also, if you have concerns, if you're concerned for your kid, or because that was an issue I had a lot with my dad, was just he was more concerned, and he didn't really do anything to really better himself on that. I still suggest research, and I told my dad this, so of course, if you tell people this, not everyone's gonna listen, and it's just unfortunate. Patience, love, that's all you can do. And if someone's treating you bad, I feel like each situation is different. Each person is going to have their own unique experience with this, because each human's different, honestly. And being trans is just kind of being human, there's not a lot that each person shares a trait with. It's just like anybody else in this world. However, having that difference, of course, does bring people together. But yeah, I suggest communication, research, and if you feel like whoever you're concerned for about being trans, maybe look up other trans people on YouTube, because honestly, there's something, there's something that those other YouTubers out there can give you that I most certainly cannot, which one of those things is charisma and explaining things a lot better, but also if you watch some of those people from the beginning of their journey and you watch as they transition, they become such different people, and you can tell how much happier they are. And honestly, it's amazing. And honestly, that's probably part of why I decided to document being trans, is because, you know, I know that's a big part, and because I'm also kind of different from a lot of other people, you know, I figured, oh, I guess my perspective would maybe be a good one to have out there for people. So, yeah. Anyhow, that's pretty much all those questions. If there are any other questions that you guys want answered, or you know, you like this kind of thing of explaining things to kind of meet somewhere in the middle ground, this is kind of what I would rather be doing, but I've been getting annoyed at at certain types of people, like, you know, snowflakes and SJWs and stuff like that, so I tend to voice against those people, but I don't believe in that being against anybody is good for anybody at all. So yeah, I you know, I like to give a neutral perspective as much as I possibly can. So if you like this kind of a thing, you know, and hey, you know, if you guys like the idea of the raw potato, because it would make a lot more sense for me on this channel nowadays, then yeah, that I can totally do that. Anyhow, I think we're good. So if you guys have any questions, or you know, just feel free to talk to me. Be humans, but not the bad humans, which are most humans. So don't be human. But okay, I'm gonna stop being dumb and stop the recording now. Thank you, you guys, and I guess I'll see you in other videos. Bye.